Simon Sanchez from the Consolidated Commission on Utilities. Good morning, Simon.
Hey, Chris. Hey, Sabrina.
Hi.
We just really wanted to get you on the phone because obviously with the extension of this until May 5th, one of the first things that popped into my mind was you guys had tabled disconnections until the end of the order, which was on April 13th. Now that it's been extended to May 5th, where are we in terms of customers and what they have to do to keep the lights on, to keep the water running?
Well, the good news is both John Beneventi and Miguel Bordallo, they have the authority to make that call. We don't have to call the CCU into a session or anything like that. They were the ones that extended it originally till March 30th, and now that it's extended to May, I'm sure they will make the unilateral decision to extend it. I'll ask them to call into you or let you guys know through a press release of some sort. But my assumption is that John and both GPA and GWA will continue the policy of no disconnections. We're even running into a situation where people were just about to connect their new house, and we had to stop. And now, not only can we not do any disconnections, we can't do any connections. But I think for now, for the safety of the community, I'll ask John and Miguel to officially announce it to you. But my assumption is that they will extend it till the end of till May 5th, because that's sort of the new date. And if they don't, I'm sure they would get a call from 5 commissioners.
Right.
So my assumption, is that they will continue to extend it. We're very grateful for those that are trying to pay, and it's amazing how many people still want to go through that drive-through to want to pay. But that's part of it is because they're getting their last full checks. Right. Mm-hmm. It's the next few weeks. It's the next month where many people are out of work, or my people are getting they're only working 3 hours a day. They're not working 8 hours a day. So it's the future payrolls that we're very concerned about, and that's we know people are just not going to be able to have the money to make their payments. This is not the time to worry about disconnecting power or water. We got to keep that going to everybody. This is not a credit issue time. This is a health time. It's an emergency, and I'd be very shocked if John Beneventi and Miguel did not extend it till May 5th. That would be my recommendation to them. I'll ask them to make a decision and reach out to the public, to you folks, and to the media, to announce any changes. For now, if you do want to still pay, and if you are able to pay, I believe it's now 6:30 to 3 or 6:30 to 2. I think you've been announcing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can go earlier, and it's only Monday through Friday. But the whole idea of not assembling, of not gathering, of not being with each other, you don't have to pay if you're not worried. If you are worried about just transmittal of diseases, if you just don't want to be around people, don't worry about not paying your bill. Save your money, hoard it. There'll be a time to pay it, and whatever balance is owed, we'll work it out. So, it's not a time to have anybody worry about power or water.
Wow.
Thanks. That's so reassuring.
Good to hear. Yeah, that's how you do it, guys. That's how you reassure people right there.
Yeah, it's tough, and I appreciate your frustration. I've been listening to, God gave me 2 ears. I'm listening to 2 different shows, sometimes 3 different shows, and I appreciate the difficulty of decision making.
Yeah.
It's a very lonely job for the governor and the senators and all that. But they got to do stuff. You got to make calls. That's what you signed up for. And it's an uncertain time. And I think that, that's what frustrates everyone, is the uncertainty, right? Yeah. When is it going to end? Not every day there's a new set of rules. Now all of our employees, we're garbing up. We're finding ways to make those masks that you can make from handkerchiefs, bandanas, and rubber bands, and headgear for my wife that she's made. So just to make sure that we don't spread it. Still trying to do some exercise. Just came from a walk 6 feet apart, 30-minute walk in the morning, just to try to keep going, keep whatever sanity you can keep these days. But thank you all for the information and the outreach and the advocacy, and yell at them with one voice, but also support the leadership. It's a tough call. Even if you were governor for a day, you figure somebody else be yelling at you for somebody that doesn't agree with you would be yelling at you for.
But I would know that comes with the territory.
Well, I think they know it comes with the territory. These are not people that, the governor's been around. She's won elections. She's lost elections. She's been elected. She's a veteran, and she's making her call. But you have the right to question and disagree and suggest alternatives. And I hope the legislature also takes advantage of they have some powers. I've had some ideas about things they could do for immediate relief. They seem hesitant to want to do that.
What are some of those ideas, Si? Let's go and put your former lawmaker hat on.
Well, one of the things I thought about was the liquid fuels tax. For example, we charge 16 cents a gallon. I think is our tax. It's the local tax, right? And it was just raised, I think, a year or two ago, a couple cents. Maybe for the next 3-6 months, you cut that thing by 10 cents a gallon. Now, on the one hand, you're saying, hey, you don't want to make it easier for people to travel, right? I get that side. But for those that are essential, for those people that are delivering, for the doctors and nurses that still have to go to work, if we could knock off 10, 12 cents a gallon and sacrifice some liquid fuel tax for the next 6 months or for whatever. I know it's committed to bonds. No one's going to default on a bond. Everybody is giving them, every lender in the world knows they're going to extend payments to the borrowers. So if for 6 months.
They read the news, in other words.
Yeah. And they're getting, this is a global thing. So for 6 months, if you took 10 cents a gallon off the liquid fuels tax, well, if you're doing 20 gallons or 15 gallons, that's $1.50, $2. You do that 2-3 times, it adds up. Those are little things you can do. There's no magic bullet. There's no, hey, here's a bill, we'll introduce it, we'll pass it, and everyone gets $1,000 a month. GovGuam doesn't have that kind of money, right. But GovGuam could sacrifice some revenue, and GovGuam's going to have to worry about whether you defer GRT or not. There's no GRT coming in the next 30, 60, 90 days. My business is down 50% from a year ago. But in the last 2 weeks, it's down 90%. We're only doing the military. We're only doing GRMC, and which is essential, and that's all we should be doing. But my people are not working 8 hours a day. They're working 3 hours a day. We're done by noon. We don't work on the weekends. And so their paychecks and paychecks of many other businesses and employees are going to get smaller and smaller. And everything you can do to mitigate that, like not turning off their power, not turning off their water. But on the GovGuam side, I think they could give up some liquid fuels tax. That's the one I thought about. The GRT argument is almost moot now because there's going to be the GRT the businesses are going to be reporting next month is nada.
What's 5% of nothing?
Yeah, so 5 or 4%.
4%, yeah.
Right, but nonetheless, those that do have some income, they could use that extra percent if it allows us to keep people employed. I know many of us in the business community were all flocking to the SBA programs that were in the CARE federal legislation. All of our companies were going over it this weekend. I've already turned in my application on Friday. Those businesses that can participate should, because there's incentives to pay your employees. You've got to, in one of the programs, one of the better programs, you've got to use 75% of the proceeds that you would borrow for your payroll. But if you do that, it's a grant. It's no longer a loan. The federal government will say, hey, you covered people for payroll, I'm giving it to you.
Are you talking about the Paycheck Protection Program?
Yeah, the PPP program, right? And then there's the Economic Disaster Loan Program, SBA. That's a free $10,000. And then there's even a tax credit for your payroll taxes. That's done by the IRS. So, all of us in business are kind of sorting through all of these things, but there's huge incentives to keep your people employed. At least for the PPP, it's for 8 weeks. If you can keep your average payroll up to what it was before COVID-19, then the feds give you that money through a bank and don't ask you to repay it once you document that you've actually paid your employees. So we're calculating, how do we keep paying our employees as if they work 40 hours a week, even though they're only working 15 hours a week, but the feds are going to give us the money. So we're going to do it. We're going to give our people money so they can go out and make sure that they can pay their bills. When it is time to pay their bills, they can buy the food they need, they can buy the medicine, and pay rents even. I mean, it's people want to pay their bills if they can. No one wants to get behind unnecessarily, but this is such a crazy time. But businesses should take advantage of that program. I know many businesses many banks are working overtime to make sure that they can do the paperwork and get those in, because no one knows how far this money's going to go from the federal side. And when you watch the federal discussions, they know they're going to probably have to repeat a couple of $2 trillion appropriations.
Right. Yeah.
Because no one knows when it's going to end.
Yeah. And I was thinking by the time the $1,200 comes down, I'm not saying $1,200 is nothing, but people are going to be so behind by the time they get that money. I feel like it's going to be gone already.
Right, because at the end of the day, income we would normally be receiving as a community from tourists, from federal spending, from military spending, ain't coming in. Particularly, there's no tourism, right? So all of those jobs and all that multiplier effect and all the suppliers of tourism and the whole kind of weakness of the economy. No one's getting car repairs. No one's fixing this or that. Construction is going to grind to a halt. Those things move money around, employ people, and those people go spend it in the economy and life. That's that's how you want it to work, but it's not a normal time now. There's no income coming in other than federal money. There's no tourism money coming in. The only two sources of outside money right now is federal and military, and then we circulate that less money in an economy where people aren't getting 40-hour work weeks. They're getting 15-hour work weeks or no hour.
Hey, Si, so I mean, I know that you're a bright guy. You got it, pretty much figured out. But is anyone, informing? This is a comment from our Facebook. Is anyone informing business owners about maybe navigating through this process? Because I talked to one small business owner over the weekend, and he was like, "Oh my God, I went on the website. I had the hardest time getting through, and then when I got through, it was like avalanche of paperwork and." So it does seem pretty complicated.
I think we're going to try and get Kenneth Lujan on the show from SBA.
Right. Yeah.
And remember that the law was just signed 2 Saturdays ago. So even the feds are changing. In fact, perfect example. I turned my application in Friday when it was due on Guam, April 3rd. But it wasn't April 3rd in the U.S. Well, guess what SBA did on Saturday and Sunday? They changed the application form. So I got to use a different application form. So even on the federal side, they're just standing it up. There's a lot of, they're going to make changes. But I will say this, I'm involved, obviously, with Bank Pacific. They know how it works. We bank with First Hawaiian and Bank of Guam. They know how it works. So the banks are getting up to speed. They're educating people. If you're a business person and you're not sure, go online, call your bank. The information is there. It is a kind of a moving target, but it should settle down. But there is federal assistance to businesses to keep employing people at their pre-COVID-19 pay level. And the money would be provided by the federal government. But it only lasts 8 weeks. Get in line quick. And hopefully the feds will continue to reappropriate to that program, similarly to that unemployment program that we're finally setting up. Well, there's another example. I think Senator Nelson's trying to fund an unemployment program. We're going to have one now through the federal DOL. When Dave De La Sola says it's ready to go, there's nothing stopping the local government from throwing some more money into that.
Right.
You don't have to just rely on the federal side.
And that was the bill that she wanted to have an emergency session on weeks ago, but they ended up not having
some of them might have been chicken in the egg because there's no program. But now that there's a program, there's going to be a program there. According to the governor and the team, they're setting one up with DOL US. And when that program is there, there's federal money funding it. There's nothing stopping the local money to go into that program. I think the challenge of the local government is, okay, so where are we going to get this local money now that we don't have an economy really since March? And their revenue is going to get shrink. They're paying full payroll now, which is a challenge for them. Maybe not Friday, but 2 Fridays from now, 4 Fridays from now, as the government of Guam's revenue shrinks and you're paying people full payroll, that creates that's a huge pressure issue I can anticipate for Gov Guam is if they can't cover payroll or they can only cover partial payroll, and yet they also want to pay essential workers more money. So, all of this, it's kind of a zero-sum game, right?
And that was the interesting thing that, one of the reporters asked, I think it was Kevin Kerrigan, about, because the governor announced the 25% differential pay, but he asked if for the non-essential employees, do you foresee maybe cutting their pay, to help share the load and paying everybody else?
Yeah, and she was like, but hard no. Nope, no discussion. And
do you think in times like this that's necessary?
I think it
is.
It's
definitely a decision right now. She hasn't gotten there. I think Saipan went to 72-hour weeks. So
right.
Every governor is different. I mean, you look around the country, not every governor has cut, the pay of essential or non-essential in their government. I mean, it is a judgment call.
Yeah, but Guam's not really a state, though, right? We don't have the same.
But you all have the same. You only have so much income, right? Yeah. And now your income is being squeezed, and now that's going to get down to smaller. And then here's Simon saying, cut the liquid fuels tax. But I'm kind of going, hey, for now you can afford. That's one wallet that if you didn't put as much money into it, so you're not fixing roads in the next 6 months, that's okay. If you keep that money in the nurses and the doctors and the reporters that have to go to work or the laundry workers that have to go to work, and at least make that a little cheaper for the next 3-6 months. I think that's the other thing is no solution has to be forever.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to use the word forever, but you can make some of these short-term decisions like cut the liquid fuels tax and possibly consider this very challenging issue of if Gov Guam starts to run out of money, how are you going to cover full government payroll plus these new differentials that you have to pay?
I think that we should have already done some kind of like cut 8 hours. I mean, it's unfortunate. I was talking with a friend of mine in the private sector last night, and we talk about us and them, and with the military and the local community. What we're starting to see people, and it's kind of unfortunate, is there is an us and them with the government employees and the private sector employees. Where the government employees are the non-essential ones. And I know so many of them, and I love you guys. What we're seeing is they're holding up families right now because they're getting paid.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, there's no nice solution, because I think no matter, even if you didn't make those decisions, right, I think the cash flow of the economy, we're already seeing it in business, you're going to see it in government, and there may be a challenge to covering full payrolls, 2-3 payrolls from now, because there's no income coming in on the economy side. There's no taxes being paid by anybody. No one, one of the biggest cash flow days of Guam is April 15th, when we all pay our taxes. Ain't anybody paying their taxes on April 15th. So I'm sure, and Ed Byrne and Les Carlson, there's some smart people there, and I think when they project forward, I know I'd be worried about what does cash flow look like at Guam in the next 30, 60, 90 days, and if it does look that bad, what are you going to do? And do you consider, as you're suggesting, Chris, do you consider decisions like, well, maybe the non-essential, we've got to cut it back to 72 hours or whatever, just because they can't cover it. They can't cover it.
Yeah, those kind of things.
It's not like they can write a check to the private sector. There's very little Guam can do. They can't, appropriate $20 million and give it to the private sector. I haven't figured out how you could do that. But you could do things like liquid fuels tax. Well, liquid fuels tax is immediate. If you passed a law and said it's now 6 cents a gallon instead of 16 cents a gallon, the gas stations could implement that right away. And at least for a while, you're saving 10 cents a gallon. I know there's bond covenants and all that stuff. I think for now, you just kind of tell everybody, hey, on the bond covenant side, have a nice day. We got to get through this emergency. We'll figure it out on the back end, right? But for now, during this crisis, maybe drop the liquid fuel tax. Maybe just do the GRT to 3, just for those that are trying to pay. Paying at 3 instead of 4, they can use that money to pay other things, rents, utilities, whatever.
But how hard is that? How hard is that, Simon? When the governor has repeatedly gone on the record saying that she doesn't support any type of local assistance to the people. So if you have a senator, and I'm pretty sure we're going to see this week, because these senators, they have their COVID-19 related bills, they want to get them in, but for all intents and purposes, if the governor is saying no local assistance, I'm pretty sure she's going to veto it, and then does she then call on these 6 senators who are go-tos to not support the override? So, I mean, there's a lot of questions. You see what I'm saying?
In the politics of it, if there's six sponsors, there's 5. I was actually thinking this through. There's 6 sponsors, there's 5 Republicans, and there's 4 that aren't with the 6. You still need to get to 8. So 2 of those 3 factions need to get together, and the body, the branch has to still make a decision. The governor does need them to either appropriate or to pass authorizations in law. I mean, it's not like she's running it all by herself. Right now, the legislature's leadership has chosen not to be active. But now, as you raised on Friday, I mean, there's 15 of them. They all should have a chance, perhaps. Some would argue those 15 deserve a chance to participate in the discussion.
Yes.
And I think this week's session, while you're discussing emergency powers for the governor, it does open up opportunities for all these other ideas to be presented. I think this is what you talked about on Friday. At least get everyone in a room in that branch, or maybe not in the same room, but figure out a way, you can figure it out, to have a discussion amongst 15 members of that branch and let them echo their collective decision on this, right? And say, here's what we're willing to appropriate, here's what we're willing to change, here's the authorizations we're willing to give to you. That if they're going to go into session for that piece, which the governor needs, and I appreciate that she had to ask. She has to ask for those powers, and then we'll figure out what she'll do with those powers. But they're going to go into session, so I hope the legislature gives some serious thought to the opportunities they have in this rare time to meet about not just the stuff the governor needs, but what other things they think they can do to provide some sort of, as immediate relief as you can. There is no magic bullet. There's no immediate relief that everyone's going to finally feel better, right? We got to kill the disease. That's the battle. But little things can all add up. The one thing that I thought they could do the fastest is liquid fuel tax, and they do got to worry about future Guam payrolls. As people don't pay their taxes because there's no income in the economy.
All right.
Okay. Well,
thank
thanks,
you.
Simon.
Thank you, Simon.
We'll be listening.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Take care.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
There you go. Yeah. If I'm those,
Stay safe.
if I'm those senators, I'm thinking like, hey, no session unless